So
All
people
right.
that, yep.
Yeah, so I've received my Starlink like 2 weeks ago now. So I've just done a pretty short slide deck around the experience and what I've done and where we're at. So I'm part of the Better Than Nothing beta. So let's go through.
Actually, I don't know what's going on, but I'm seeing my screen.
Okay, I'm seeing my one coming up in my feed, so that's...
You are viewing Ashley's shared screen. So, okay, I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, have you got the participants list on the right-hand side?
Yep, I can probably stop your sharing.
Yeah, I thought I had stopped it anyway. All right.
It has stopped for me, so...
Okay.
All right, so let's go through. So I received it, the box, and I've set it up outside quickly, and now I've got it all up on the roof and things. So I've been using it for the last couple of weeks and trying to get a good feel for it. So what is it? So Starlink is a product of SpaceX, and it's a way that they plan to fund their future space ambitions. They're made in the US by SpaceX internally, and so far they've launched just over 1,700 of them, and it goes up to 30,000 later on. So they've been mostly doing it as individual payloads on the Falcon 9, but they also do them as part of extra payloads when they're not quite a full load. So the system consists of Starlink satellites, user terminals, and ground stations. So the terminal is actually affectionately known as Dishy, or Dishy McFlatface. So I've done a few videos and things on this in the past, and a few things have changed. So when you're watching videos about it on YouTube, you know that there's a few things that have changed. The most important one being is that it's no longer an ACMA restrictions about where you can actually get them. So now they've got a license to operate Australia-wide, and that happened July this year. And it's no longer a deposit-based system. You just pay the full price up when you're ordering it and it comes in. So you do have some limitations about where you can get it Australia-wide at the moment, because the satellites rely on reflection. So there has to be a ground station within the same area. And the deposit was based off someone on YouTube that I made comments with. So too long to DR for people that don't want to watch the rest of the presentation. So it's a Better Than Nothing beta. So until it's finished, it's out of the beta stage. It could drop out. There could be issues. They could be upgrading networks and satellites whenever they want. But you got no real recourse for that. It's one of the reasons why I'm actually doing my presentation not over Starlink tonight, because it always goes out at the inopportune moment. It's $800 for Dishy at the moment, and $139 a month, and there's no download limits. The speeds fluctuate a lot at the moment because of the minimum number of ground stations and satellites. I've seen between 700 and 300 plus megabits per second for download, and 10 to 40 megabits per second for upload. And all of my latencies have been under 49 milliseconds, which is really good compared to other satellite services. They seem to be mapping the obstructions from the dish, so they know when it flies behind a tree, for example, that I'm experiencing. But I guess once they have more satellites, they will then be able to know where those mappings are, so they can change satellites early enough. And at the moment, everything is basically done through the phone app. From site surveys to all of the ordering and tickets and things like that, and configurations. So you have to be a little bit tech savvy to have your phone and have that all handy, but realistically you receive it, you connect to the Wi-Fi, and off you go. So this is how it works today. You have a ground station talks up to a satellite with 1,657 of them, who talk down to a ground station again, which then has access to the internet. So each ground station has a series of ranges that it can see, and each satellite has a range. There's a really awesome website called Starlink.sx, which is a fan-based website where you can see all of these tracking and happening in real time. It's really quite awesome to watch. So they do, the way that the Starlinks are section off is because they don't allow zones and a certain number of people. you get these little hexes. And so at the moment, we're assuming that they have a certain number of people per hex. And if you can see down in the bottom corner where it's gray, that's the areas where there's no ground station that can talk to that hex at the moment. Again, you can see all of this through the Starlink.sx website. So how's it going to work in the future? Well, there'll be more satellites visible for more users. So they'll be able to greatly expand the throughputs of it. You will have, they've already tested Starlinks on aeroplanes and boats. And there are people in America that have just attached it to their car and driven around like crazy people. So that's already kind of working. And then once the satellites can use the lasers to communicate, you'll have multiple redundant paths to the internet, which make it a lot better. And there's already talks with Starlink being put on top of data centers. And that way you'll have the Starlinks will actually get faster response times to core services than some other parts of the internet. So what was my timeline? Well, I put down my deposit in February of this year. Now, where I lived back then, it was because Australia did actually have limits of where you could order. I was really on the boundary, so I didn't know whether or not I would actually get it or not. And so when I actually got confirmation I could order, that was there. So all up, I ordered on the 1st of October, paid the rest of the money, and I received it a week later from America. So there I was on the same day. I put it onto a speaker stand and put it outside with the view of the sky. Unlike most satellite services, I didn't need any special tools or equipment to calibrate it. It is quite literally put it somewhere with a view of the sky and plug it in. Not the best spot on my front lawn there, and you can see that I've got some obstructions and it was saying a dropout every 20 seconds or so. So that's all done through the app. Quite literally, when you plug it in, it has a wireless network and you connect to that and through the app. You can see I took the first screenshot at 5:23 and I was running a speed test by 5:27. So literally 5 minutes start to finish, and getting a speed that was 8 times faster than my NBN wireless was. So I did quite a lot of speed testing. So this was again in that first few minutes of testing. You can see that it did drop out a couple of times because of where it went through the house, and some latency times and speed throughputs. So that one shows a speed of max 302 megabits a second during the testing. So I did get it mounted up on the roof. It seems like they've done their due diligence a bit, and that the drilling points in the base stand actually do correlate with corrugated roof. And you can see that picture on the right, on the side there. It's actually mapping the obstruction areas where trees and things are that would cause dropouts. So some highlights of what they've been doing. They've actually already tested it with the US Air Force at flying at speed, so on the Stratotanker. And they've already done and using satellite to satellite relays, but realistically at the moment, they're only doing that for the Polar launch that they did a couple of months ago. So once they do have the satellite to satellite comms doing, they'll be able to cover basically the whole world when they do that. So the antennas they use are phased array antennas. So what that means is you're not constantly seeing the satellite track through the sky. It's not tracking a satellite through the sky. So when it's set up and adjusted, it rarely moves. So here's just a couple of speed tests that I've run over the time. Again, you can see a pretty wide varying of numbers there. Some, 350 megabits per second, all the way down to 95 megabits per second for download. So if you get a unit, they ship it to you. The cable comes attached to the Starlink device. You can't remove it. And so you run it through, you plug it into the power device, connect it to their modem, and then you can actually loop that modem onto your own network already. You can also set it up using an existing modem. So if you've already got a pretty good network and stuff set up, you just connect it into a WAN port, like most of the NBN stuff. Apparently they can't hear me. All right. So can you get it? Yes, now it's allowed for all of Australia. It's not designed for people with good internet, so please don't just sign up for it because you can. They'll only be shipping limited units while they're still making it, and there is only some hexagons that they're able to use due to the reflection and ground stations of it. So some people in very regional Australia won't have access to it just yet, but the coverage zones are quite wide. But what you can do now is you can use the Starlink mobile app to scan the sky, get on your roof and look around. And then you can fire up that starlink.sx page and do like a test of your location to see what you can. So you create and do all your ordering stuff through starlink.com. There is some fake ones out there from third parties, so don't use a third party one. You know, they claim to get you it faster and all that sort of stuff. It's impossible. It doesn't work that way. So everything is done through Starlink. So some information that I wish I knew that would have made things a bit easier. The app for surveying is overly cautious. Example, this is from my roof air. It says I'd have a dropout every 37 seconds. Realistically, I have 1, maybe 2 dropouts every 12 hours because of that tree that's blocking it. So the cable from Dishy to the modem things, you can't unplug it or anything. So if you're running it, you have to run it from the roof through the cables and start at the roof and end off where you are. You can see in that top picture that I actually had to cut one of my panels so I could get the cable through because of these ferrite cores that are on it. They're actually quite large, 22 millimeters. So you have to drill bigger holes and things to make it work. They do sell a kit for mounting it through walls, a couple of different ones, but there's no face plates or anything with it. So any installation you do is going to be, I said my one looks a bit dodgy because that's because it is. So when I ordered, they had some roof mounting options, but you couldn't order it at the same time. But apparently I've talked to some people and you can now order them at the same time that you do order. So if you have a particular type of adapter that you need, it will get shipped at the same time. And there was one other thing is that you can access your Starlink at any time using that IP address. That means that you can, see the statistics and things. Because you can use it without their modem, this is how you can replicate the phone app sides. And if you've got multiple internets like I do, you can tell it to send that address over the Starlink, and that way your app will always work for letting you check details and things like that. So there is some controversy around Starlink. They have people, well, particularly in the astronomy areas, are very unhappy with them because at the start and the end of the solar period, there was too much reflections. I think from what I gather, Starlink has been reducing the reflectivity of the units and making that less of an issue. Personally, haven't seen any of the trains recently, but I'm not across that fully. And there's a couple of sources for where some screenshots and stuff came from, and that is the end. So what I might do is I'll let people unmute themselves, and if there's any questions and things, people can ask around.
Corey.
Hi, Julian.
Hey, how you going, Ash?
Yeah,
that
good.
looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, I'm super thrilled.
Yeah.
My NBN is pretty bad with dropping out.
Yeah, no, great presentation. Very interesting, but I think I'll hold off because till they get a bit more ground stations.
I was at a presentation the other day for Microsoft for startup space that's out there, and their data centers that Microsoft is setting up in Australia actually have Starlinks on them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which one it was. I thought it was Microsoft that was getting it on there.
Yeah, looks funny. They got this big, huge data warehouse, and this little dish sitting on top.
Yeah, right.
Ashley, is that actually a dish or is that the face actually flat?
It looks like a pizza box on top of a pole. It is is the description.
So actually, I know the answer to this question, but the satellites themselves are not in geostationary orbit. So the dropouts you're talking about are as a result of the gaps between the satellite coverage. Is that correct?
Not really. So there's pretty much no longer any gaps between the satellites anymore. It's just the fact that from my rooftop, there's a big row of trees that blocks out, a couple of degrees of the sky. As they get more and more satellites, those will turn up.
So why don't they just send you a chainsaw when you order?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not my trees. But I mean, realistically, I've just got to put it on a couple of meter high pole now.
Right. Right. So, like that sort of speed, could you have a consortium of neighbours that could then tap into that and drive 3 or 4 households? Do you think?
Yep, quite easily that can happen. So I'm kind of doing something similar with my neighbours up here now, but realistically, for the people in the country, these will be, farmhouses few and far between, or boats few and far between, that aren't getting adequate internet service through normal providers.
Right.
How far out in the country are you, Ash?
So I'm down near Phillip Island. So
okay,
yeah,
so there's actually no NBN down there, I take it, is there, or what?
I actually do get NBN at my house here through NBN Wireless, but the problem is that everybody else is also on the NBN Wireless, which means that it drops out and it drops to speeds of 0 megabits per second is my official speed. So I'm not actually allowed to, it drops out and it's got all kinds of issue being regional. So this is going to be my primary internet, and then we're going to have NBN on a smaller data plan as our backup internet. We've had times when NBN's gone down and the phone network's gone down at the same time.
Sorry,
Ashley,
Ashley,
Ashley, the antenna is, as I understand it, is a phased array. Do you have to orient it at all, or is it basically just flat with the horizon?
No, it's got a series of motors in it, and it self-calibrates.
But it doesn't actually track, does it? It just puts itself into the right position initially. Is that correct?
It puts itself into the right position, and it does reorientate itself if there's like a cluster of satellites on one side of the sky. It does kind of like re-tilt itself so that it gets a better angle on multiple satellites at the same time. But mostly it stays orientated for me to the southwest.
So does that continuously then, Ash? Or?
Continuously, yeah. That's all automatic and continuous.
Yeah. Please, Ashley, you're thinking of putting it on a longer pole, okay? Now, with the circumstances of the weather around, you probably have to have some guy ropes with it as well. Would wind upset the signal?
So we haven't had wind upset the signal yet, even with some of the really big storms that have blown through the last couple of weeks.
Right.
We have, but because it's such a thin, narrow like UFO, it doesn't have much wind loading. But yeah, we'd absolutely be putting in guy ropes and things. I've got to try and make contacts now that will do that.
Yeah. Okay. Good luck with that. And I'd like to see the final result, but just bursts of wind here and there. I'm hoping it won't upset the quality of the signal.
I said no, it hasn't done that yet. And I've been using it primarily for the last 2 weeks.
Nice. And I think your neighbours will be very eager to link up with you.
The people at the post office had never seen one before, so I spent some time talking to them. But they'll probably see a lot more of them in the coming months, as a lot more other regional people without NBN or without any good internet at all start to get it.
Did you have to pay customs duty or anything like that coming in, Ash?
No, just normal. That $800 was Australian dollars ordered, in Australian dollars. So it was just shipped, and that must have all been included and done. So
GST included?
yeah.
Okay. Now, what about, like, how far are you away from French Island?
I can see French Island from where I am.
Because their communication area is rather limited, right? So are you the same, or are you closer to what the network is for Phillip Island?
Yeah, I'm closer to the network for Phillip Island.
Mhm.
But French Island, I know a couple of people on French Island who are definitely looking at it.
Yeah. Because that's always been like a forgotten area for the electricity grid, for the lighting circumstances, and also the communications networks.
Yeah, French Island doesn't even have mains power. So
Yeah. So and that's been the situation I've known for 20 years.
Well, since July, so before July, coincidentally, they were in the high density zone, which prevented them from even signing up for it.
Mhm.
Where I am, it was quite literally that high density zone was running down the middle of our street. So we couldn't sign up for. Well, I figured that if they have any kind of GPS rounding in their limiting license, that we wouldn't get it. But we found out now that since July, they've had full license for all of Australia. So
yeah. What about if you took that dish off your roof and put it in some other location, high up or otherwise? How far away from your modem would it tolerate, please?
So the cable that comes with it is, I think, 35 or 40 meters. It's quite long for the Cat5 cable. You can't detach it, but what you'd end up doing is just plugging it into some other network Ethernet device and moving on there.
Okay, so can multiple users use just the one dish?
Yeah, I mean, it just appears as an Ethernet internet connection, and you just plug it into whatever equipment that you already have. For most people, you could quite literally unplug it, the NBN type connection, and plug this straight into the WAN port, and off you go.
Okay, but can it be multiple households of one dish?
Yeah, you just have to set up your own infrastructure for that.
Just be aware, not that you'd ever get in trouble, but I think under the Telecommunications Act, it's illegal to offer any telecommunications services to other people if you're not licensed to do so. So that was in the Act a while ago. I haven't looked for a while. The question is, though, you'd probably never get caught, or no one would ever look at it. But just something to be aware of.
I will make sure I never charge anyone for the service.
But, exactly. But I do have a question. Now, my understanding is it's only available for you to use at a fixed location. You can't, for example, if you went camping in a remote part of Central Australia, you couldn't take it with you.
Okay, so the only limitation for it at the moment is regards to the hex zone that you're in. It seems to be that there's limits that you can't leave that hex zone. So I think they're like 30 or 40 kilometers wide, so they're quite big. But in terms of the technology, it's not a technology limiter. It's the fact that there's just no ground stations at the moment, like around the central of Australia, and that you'd need to have the satellite to satellite comms. It's something that they've definitely said is going to come. Mobile units for people with RVs and things like that, and boats to let them, travel massive distances. But that's not where we're at the moment.
I wonder what the warranty is like on it, because you got moving parts and everything. Over time, they would need some sort of service or maintenance, wouldn't it?
I mean, they're not moving all the time. It looks quite robust if you watch some teardown videos. but I guess we'll see as that, you know, it's a less than a year old product globally. So I've actually got the second generation of Dish, of Dish Emit flat face. There was a previous generation that they obviously fixed some issues with. Like they've put some heaters and stuff in it so that it won't have snow build up on top of the dish. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing that they're doing.
And dust
Oh.
in your area?
Dust?
Dust, gathering of dust. And
No, it's all sealed, and I doubt dust will worry the radio spectrum on it.
yeah,
but I guess
only
we'll
because
find
it
out.
cover it over. That was all,
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it's on a slight angle and it'll get rained on regularly, you know. Well, I guess if I need to, I'll climb up a ladder and spray it off with my solar panels or something. So
Yeah, just say for Central Australia, I thought maybe the dust prominence would be more critical for them. That's all.
yeah, not sure.
Okay. No.
What's the furthest distance from a ground station that it will operate?
It's quite a large distance. Let's see if I can bring up. I'll bring up that Starlink.sx page because that's by far the best thing for it. Because you can pick individual satellites and things at that point and know where it is and what it's doing. All right, so here we go.
Message actually go to?
No, I didn't. She's not online. It allows you to send it. It's not online.
I'm actually having to share from a different computer because I'm using this other one for all the live stream and stuff, and it doesn't let you do. It doesn't play nice. So if I zoom in here, so each of these orange dots are ground stations, and the orange dotted line is the satellite talking to it. So you can see that this one here, just to the west of Melbourne, is talking to a satellite that's coming down towards, the bottom of Tasmania. So it's quite a lot of reach on it. Let's zoom in any further. Yeah. So again, you get quite a lot of coverage.
There he is,
But my question was, how close to the ground station do you have to be to operate?
Mute again.
Well, quite. At the moment, it's a reflection-based system. So what happens is, as long as you and a satellite, so from the satellite can see the ground station and you can see the satellite, it works, and it looks like it's hundreds of kilometers. Again, so if I was this satellite here, for example, that's talking to the one to the west of Melbourne, you could be anywhere within this satellite's view, which I don't know if I can zoom out because I don't have a mouse connected to this computer. But yeah, if you have a play around on this Starlink.sx website, you'll be able to see exactly where it is. It's also got a pretty neat simulation feature where you can put in your address, a coverage prediction, and it'll tell you where the satellites and how much outage you're expecting for any given location. But yeah, it's a very, very cool tool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, Ashley, why wouldn't it be better for you with your dish to hone in on the ground station itself, please?
Well, obviously you can't have line of sight to the ground station.
Okay.
I mean, it's a normal radio link problem. So what you can see is from the roof, it can see the satellite, and the satellite can see a ground station. So that's how you have the communication. because otherwise radios,
Yeah,
mostly
on the
line of
basis,
sight.
you got your telephone towers, right? And if one of those ground stations was on a telephone tower, then you might be just as easy to hook up with a mobile facility, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if they put ground stations wherever there's going to be fast internet, that's going to be their thing. But they don't need to have ground stations. Like the thing with the mobile phone tower is that's within line of sight. You know, you can see that. And like for example, my NBN wireless has line of sight to the NBN tower. The issue that we have is that it's just congested, and you know, Starlink may end up congested as well if there's not enough satellites and not enough receivers.
Okay.
So
Yeah. And your thunderstorms didn't upset your Starlink link?
no, not at all.
Or the lightning and such things?
No, haven't. Well, I mean, I've been operating it for 2 and a bit weeks now. But no weather related dropouts. So
beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, guys, everyone, it's 9:30 now, so feel free
Time
to
for your bed, is it?
It's time for my bed, definitely. Feel free to keep going. Actually, I suggest maybe if you want to finish the recording, and then I will go and I'll leave you guys all to have a chat and discuss everything. Just want to say thank you to Josh from Dawn Aerospace. That was fantastic. And we're definitely going to keep in touch with him and see keep track of what they're doing. And thanks everyone else. Thanks for Michael for teeing that up. Michael does a heap of work in the background to get these speakers, and we've already been talking tonight about some of the stuff that's coming up, and it's going to be really exciting. So thanks again for that. Thanks everyone for your support throughout the year. Hopefully we'll be able to meet next month in South Melbourne if you're in the area. But if not, please join us online. And I'll say goodnight.
I might
Night, Pete.
subs.
thank you, everyone.